In the late 1990s, Rolls-Royce and Bentley faced severe turmoil as an unstable economy and aging models led these premier brands for luxury motoring into a highly complex double life between BMW and Volkswagen, dividing up names, brands, and cars among their two new German parent firms. This was reflected in the Rolls-Royce and Bentley flagship models for the period, the Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph and the Bentley Arnage, cars that had been in development for well over a decade, and upon their launch illustrated both a bright future and a fading past for the changing face of luxury driving. To understand the situation of Rolls-Royce and Bentley during its breakup in the 1990s, one must first go back to their merger together into a single entity back in the 1930s. Rolls-Royce had been established in 1904 by the famous partnership of Charles Rolls and Henry Royce, and had spent the first quarter-century of its existence truly developing itself into the unbeatable pinnacle of luxury motoring, climbing from the humble Rolls-Royce 10 horsepower of 1904 to the iconic silver Ghost and Phantoms that defined the Roaring Twenties. Bentley, on the other hand, was founded in January 1919 by W.O. Bentley of Cricklewood, North London, and prided itself on the creation of cars that mixed affluence and sporting performance with such aplomb that by the end of the 1920s, the Bentley Company was a byword for racing prowess and luxury, as illustrated through the likes of the Bentley 4.5-litre and the Bentley Speed 6. However, the Wall Street crash of 1929 hit Bentley in a devastating way, and with demand for their cars throttled, combined with 2 mortgage payments being due that could not be met, the Bentley management sought out a buyer to try and save the company, eventually being procured by the British Central Equitable Trust for £125,000, which was in fact a front for Rolls-Royce. With the acquisition of Bentley in July 1931, the firm was reorganized into a subsidiary brand dubbed Bentley Motors, and for the next 67 years would essentially create sportier variants of regular Rolls-Royce products, usually with engines and mechanics tweaked so as to place more emphasis on performance, while luxury and refinement was marginally toned down. Examples of Bentley equivalents to Rolls-Royce machines were the R-Type as an equivalent to the Silver Dawn, the S-Series and their flowing Continental versions that equated to the Silver Cloud, and the T-Series as an equivalent to the Silver Shadow. In 1971, the Rolls-Royce Company, which included the manufacture of jet engines, was rendered bankrupt following its involvement with the exceptionally expensive and long-delayed RB211 high-bypass turbofan engine project, as developed for the Lockheed TriStar wide-body airliner, though after an audit undertaken by the official receiver, the car division of the company was deemed to be still solvent and could continue to survive as a separate entity. Thus, the car division was spun off as a separate business dubbed Rolls-Royce Motors Limited, while the engine-building firm was nationalised by the government of Prime Minister Edward Heath, the luxury car company being able to maintain its place on the market throughout the 1970s, regardless of the oil crisis of 1973. However, it was during this period that a real question emerged as to the future of Bentley, as with Rolls-Royce having developed a new series of models, including the Silver Shadow and the Camargue, that were built to meet the tastes of a more driver-orientated customer base, Bentley was perceived to have lost its relevance in the company, and by the end of the decade only accounted for 5% of total sales within the Rolls-Royce firm. This, though, changed in 1979, when Rolls-Royce once again faced financial trouble due to the 1979 oil crisis caused by the Iranian Revolution, a sharp downturn in luxury car sales, combined with delays in developing a replacement for the 15-year-old Silver Shadow, and the failure of the Camargue to be a winning model on the ultra-luxury market, meant the company's future was now hanging severely in the balance. In order to save the firm, the Rolls-Royce management accepted a takeover bid from Vickers plc, the last surviving remnant of one of Britain's largest corporate empires, Vickers Armstrong, the direction of Vickers being that all resources in the Rolls-Royce arsenal should be used to ensure its recovery going into the 1980s. A key to this revival of the company's fortunes would be the Bentley brand, and in a move back towards the traditional arrangement of the two marques, the new SZ range of luxury cars, built to replace the Silver Shadow in 1980, would be split between the more affluent Silver Spirit and Silver Spur ranges under the Rolls-Royce name, and sports-orientated versions dubbed the Bentley Mulsanne and the entry-level Bentley 8. The Mulsanne, and more notably the Mulsanne Turbo, as well as other performance-orientated variants throughout the 1980s, including the Bentley Turbo R, meant this brand saw a huge resurgence against the likes of Audi and BMW, essentially refilling its dwindling finances and saving the company, while also creating some of the finest luxury sports saloons ever to enter the market. With money pouring back into the company, Rolls-Royce were determined not to be caught out again, as per their near collapse in 1979, and during 1987 began development of Project SXB, with the original idea being to create a single platform for Rolls-Royce and Bentley, but with the two brands using different bodywork. The Rolls-Royce would have just two side windows, using a large rear pillar to conceal the rear passengers, and its sweeping lines would pay homage to the classic silver cloud of the 1950s and 60s, while the Bentley was to use slimmer pillars, three side windows, and a truncated tail for a less stately appearance. The project, though, came to a rapid halt when, during consultation with the company's American importer network, it was discovered that the proposed length of 16 foot 8 inches was far too small to be a tenable luxury car, especially in the United States, where the machine was in fact smaller than contemporary Cadillacs, which themselves were at their smallest size ever. The project was thus reworked in 1989, creating two styling proposals, but before any further work could be done, the 1992 global economic recession caused a significant downturn in luxury car sales once again, and the finances for Rolls-Royce became strained, the result being that the concept of using two distinct body styles had to be abandoned, and all focus was placed into simply developing a shared body shell with minor differences between the Rolls-Royce and Bentley models. Renamed the P2000 and P3000, the design team was led by Graham Hull, who had been elevated to chief designer in 1990, although due to employee cutbacks as an outcome of the recession, only 6 full-time design staff were present at the Rolls-Royce factory and crew. Thus much of the work had to be delegated to external contractors, including the Heffernan Greenlee Consultancy, Roy Axe's Design Research Associates, and Pininfarina. One of the first actions by the design team was to reimagine the classic Rolls-Royce grille into something more appealing to the modern attitudes of the 1990s, with market research considering that the stately radiator grille shape was perhaps too ostentatious in many parts of the world, and thus much work went into reducing its visual weight, subtly smoothing off the surround, shrinking the spirit of ecstasy, and adding body-colored elements. By 1995, the main external styling themes had been finalized, with the interior design being overseen by Robin Page, the decision being made that the new cars would return to classic proportions and styling details due to the boxy looks of the SZ range of the 1980s having stepped too far away from the traditional Rolls-Royce style. The result was a pleasing formal roofline, C-pillar, and slightly truncated rear doors that picked up the original brief of Project SXB by way of harking back to the silver cloud, rounding out the hard angles and straight lines of the SZ to give a more wind tunnel flow to the overall aesthetic of the machine. Meanwhile, for the car's mechanics, much of what would make the upcoming P2000 and P3000 a must-have machine for the 1990s had been introduced on the preceding SZ range through engineering chief Mike Dunn, who had transformed the likes of the Silver Spirit and Bentley Mulsanne from a wallowing road-going land yacht into a machine with dynamic capability. For the P2000 and P3000, body stiffness was increased by 65%, and the adoption of modern anti-lock braking, traction control, an electronically controlled gearbox, and adaptive damping meant the cars were technically comparable with anything on the market, this being complemented by huge investments into updating the production facilities at the Crewe factory. However, one of the biggest bones of contention for the new car was a power plant, with the long-running Rolls-Royce V8 engine that was first introduced in the Silver Cloud II back in 1959 being considered not suitable for the upcoming car due to the expense of updating it to meet pending emissions legislation. At the time, Rolls-Royce, in the face of its financial concerns, had outsourced much of its supply work to one of its primary German rivals, BMW, who had signed a technology supply agreement during 1994, granting the Crewe engineering teams access to BMW's componentry and body engineering resources. This meant that, in terms of a power plant, the BMW M73 5.4-litre V12 from the 7 Series was considered for use in the P2000 and P3000, but this wasn't the company's first choice, with the General Motors North Star V8 from the Cadillac Eldorado and V8 and V12 units from Mercedes-Benz also being shortlisted for the new cars. In the end, Rolls-Royce opted for the BMW power unit, and a deal was made with BMW where the Veer cylinder would supply their 5.4-litre V12 unit for Rolls-Royce purposes, while the Bentley would employ a twin-turbo version of BMW's 4.4-litre V8. The existing technology deal between Rolls-Royce and BMW also meaning the German V12 could be seamlessly integrated with items like the transmission electronics and air conditioning controls without further development. In April 1997, Rolls-Royce officially announced that their upcoming replacement for the SZ range would be christened the Silver Seraph, the term seraph being of biblical origin, with significance in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and represented an angelic being that belonged to the highest order of the ninefold celestial hierarchy. Concurrently, the Bentley would continue the classic Rolls-Royce naming convention of French beauty spots by way of the Arnage moniker, derived from the administrative region of Pays de la Loire in northwestern France, where the prestigious Le Mans racecourse is located. Finally, in January 1998, the Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph, at a cost of £155,000, was unveiled at the 1998 Geneva Motor Show as only the 19th Rolls-Royce model built in the company's 92-year history, as well as being the first of their models to be output with a V12 engine since the Phantom III of 1939, thus making it the fastest Rolls-Royce ever built to that point, followed during April of the same year by the release of the Bentley Arnage into sales. Press reaction to the Silver Seraph, however, proved to be mixed, with road testers torn between the far more stiff and robust body structure that was a huge improvement over the wallowing SZ range, and the fact that the BMW V12, though extremely powerful, lacked the effortless low-speed torque of the old pushrod V8. The Bentley Arnage, though, was a machine overwhelmed by universal acclaim, its state-of-the-art design and build having created a sure-footed luxury car that had the power to put dedicated sports saloons to shame, with 0 to 60 coming in just 5.9 seconds and a top speed of 168 miles an hour being achievable, despite the car weighing 2.8 tons. Sadly, amidst the entry of the Silver Seraph and the Arnage into the marketplace, a long and protracted bidding war over the still financially unstable Rolls-Royce company, which was dragging down the ailing Vickers Group, had concluded in May 1998, with Volkswagen emerging as the victor over the rival BMW. At a cost of $780 million, Rolls-Royce Motor Cars fell into the hands of Volkswagen, though this did not include the Rolls-Royce name itself, as this was not the property of Vickers, the company having licensed the use of the Rolls-Royce name for the car division from Rolls-Royce plc, the separate jet engine and aerospace manufacturer rescued by the Heath government in 1971. During negotiations for the deal, Rolls-Royce plc, due to its close ties to BMW, had a marked preference for BMW to become the custodian of the Rolls-Royce car company, while at the same time already having established a technology deal with Rolls-Royce through the supply of vital parts and power units for the Silver Seraph and the Arnage. Thus, when Volkswagen ultimately won the bidding war over Rolls-Royce and Bentley, BMW CEO Bernd Pichetsrieder announced that the supply of BMW engines and parts to Rolls-Royce and Bentley would be halted within a year, not enough time for Volkswagen to develop a power unit dedicated for use inside the luxury models, their largest engine, the Audi 4.2-litre ABH V8, not being suitable for either Rolls-Royce or Bentley cars. Under mounting pressure, Volkswagen eventually capitulated, and at a conference held in London during July 1998, an agreement was reached between Volkswagen CEO Ferdinand Piëch and BMW's Bernd Pichetsrieder that Volkswagen would be allowed to maintain the exclusive rights to the Rolls-Royce name until the end of 2002, at which time the Rolls-Royce name and Spirit of Ecstasy emblem would be handed to BMW from Rolls-Royce plc at a cost of $65 million. In what was described by analysts as a steal for BMW, the future was now that Rolls-Royce and Bentley would be split by the end of 2002, with Volkswagen being in control of the Rolls-Royce Motors Company, which included the Bentley brand and the Crewe factory, but with BMW owning the rights to the Rolls-Royce name and iconography, thus requiring the construction of a new production facility for their future model range. While BMW would have the disadvantage of losing Bentley, which, thanks to its renaissance in the 1980s, now accounted for 60% of total cumulative sales for the Rolls-Royce company, the Rolls-Royce brand itself was a far more recognizable asset, and with BMW in charge, would be directed in a manner that appealed to modern luxury tastes, rather than the somewhat traditional outlook of the Silver Seraph, especially following the announcement of Mercedes reviving the Maybach brand for an upcoming ultra-luxury range of models. In the wake of this turbulent period, Volkswagen chose to remove BMW engines from the Bentley Arnage during 2000, instead utilizing an updated version of the classic Rolls-Royce 6.75-litre V8 engine from the Bentley Turbo R, though this engine was proven to have very poor fuel economy and failed to meet government emissions standards, thus requiring the fitting of an outmoded 4-speed automatic transmission. Under Volkswagen leadership, the Arnage also saw the development of the red and green label variants, both cars featuring heavy revisions that included stiffer body shells and larger wheels and brakes. The red label of 1999 using an improved 6.75-litre engine, thus making it the highest torque four-door in the car market at the time. The green label of 2000, meanwhile, developed a modified version of the original BMW V8 powerplant, with only 7 examples ever built, all in left-hand drive, alongside 52 limited edition Arnage Birkins, and were distinguishable by their 3-dial as opposed to 5-dial instrument center dashboard configuration. Back with the Silver Seraph, the divorce of Rolls-Royce and Bentley was essentially the death knell to this model, as Volkswagen retained the rights to the Arnage's body design, and thus precluded BMW's ability to continue production of the Silver Seraph beyond January 1, 2003, without having to assemble the car under license. However, Rolls-Royce were still willing to ensure that the final years of the classic model lineup would be memorable, as was the case with the brief revival of the Corniche name during 1999 on what was dubbed the Rolls-Royce Corniche 5, making its debut 4 years after the classic Corniche of 1971 had been discontinued. The Corniche 5, though, was not as much of a Rolls-Royce as one might be led to believe, as the car was in fact derived from the chassis and drivetrain of Bentley's own range of models for the 1990s, the Continental R Coupe, of which the convertible version was dubbed the Azure of 1995, and was the only drop-top car on sale within the entire Rolls-Royce firm. With the Rolls-Royce division lacking its own convertible, the Bentley Azure platform was taken back by Rolls-Royce in order to create an open-top variant of the Silver Seraph, the only instance in the history of the two companies that a Rolls-Royce car would be derived from the chassis and drivetrain of a Bentley rather than the other way around. Unveiled at the 2000 Geneva Motor Show, the Corniche 5 was essentially an Azure with a Silver Seraph-derived body shell, even down to adopting the 6.75-litre Rolls-Royce V8 powerplant rather than the BMW V12 from the Seraph, this being coupled to a 4-speed automatic transmission built by General Motors. For interior trim, the Corniche 5 came with a combination of Scandinavian cow leather and the finest wood veneers, as completed by chrome door handles, vents, dials and switches, while the carpets were made out of wool, the Corniche 5 being the last new Rolls-Royce model to be developed at the Crewe works prior to the final separation of the two firms. For the Seraph itself, the only bespoke variant of this machine came in the form of an extended wheelbase 5-passenger version dubbed the Park Ward, which debuted at the 2000 Geneva Motor Show alongside the Corniche 5, this car featuring a 9.8-inch extension to the size of the doors, resulting in more legroom for passengers, the original proposal being for 200 of these machines to be built, but only 127 were ever made before production ended in 2002, making it also the last ever use of the classic Park Ward label. Finally, for the 2001 model year, a special Silver Seraph Last of the Line edition was released to mark the termination of Rolls-Royce production at Crewe, of which only 170 were built, these cars boasting over the standard model special wood veneers with inlaid Spirit of Ecstasy motif, a commemorative plaque on the center console, red Rolls-Royce badges on the grille and the boot lid, Spirit of Ecstasy motif on the hubcaps, chromed exterior mirrors, and a subtle badge on the front bumper with the text Rolls-Royce Motor Cars, Crewe, England, together with the British flag. At the same time, a final series edition for the Corniche 5 was released for a proposed production run of 56 units, thus marking 56 years of Rolls-Royce assembly at the Crewe factory, though in the end only 45 examples were output, and were distinguishable by front bumper badges reading Rolls-Royce Cars, Crewe, England, with a Union flag insignia, chromed mirror housings, restyled and chromed Bentley Azure wheels, Spirit of Ecstasy hubcaps, red Rolls-Royce badges on the grille and the boot lid, rosewood burr and cherry wood trim with Spirit of Ecstasy inlay, and an individually numbered commemorative plaque on the center console. Finally, on August 30, 2002, the very last Rolls-Royce badged car, a Corniche 5 with chassis number 2079, rolled off the Crewe production line, this car featuring, alongside the final series editions, a unique Chesterfield button theme in spruce green without seat edge piping, a center console plaque reading "A Century of Excellence," and silver text inlays on the radio flap reading "The Final Rolls-Royce Corniche, Chassis 2079. In the end, the Silver Seraph production run amounted to 1,570 cars, while the Corniche 5 saw 384 examples built before the model was axed, with production facilities relocated for Rolls-Royce to a brand new factory near Chichester in southern England, where BMW would completely reface the Rolls-Royce brand with its pioneer model, the Phantom 7 of 2003. Launched in July 1998 as Project Rolls-Royce, BMW invested heavily in their new machine alongside a fully modern production facility in which to build it, the resultant car needing to encompass all the current trends of luxury motoring so as not to be perceived in the classic regal style as the Silver Seraph. Taking many styling cues from past Rolls-Royce models, while at the same time expanding its dimensions and incorporating a more sports-orientated edge to its performance, the first prototype, 100EX, left the Chichester production line on January 1, 2003, conducting a world tour to drum up enthusiasm before entering sales later in the year, the Phantom 7 bringing Rolls-Royce back to the fore in terms of luxury motoring, and would see a wide range of derivative models over the following decades. The Silver Seraph would continue to live on, though, inside the Arnage, as immediately following the divorce of Rolls-Royce and Bentley, Volkswagen needed to ensure that their new brand could make a splash on the global luxury car market and recoup their huge investment, with the Arnage remaining the only saloon model on sale, while development was placed into a replacement Continental, which was eventually unveiled in mid-2003. Under Volkswagen ownership, a number of limited edition Arnages would be released, including the RL Limousine of 2001, which were long wheelbase bespoke versions boasting a larger rear area and enhanced performance and reliability, thanks to an upgraded 6.75-litre V8 engine with potent twin turbos, and was outshopped with armor plating and bulletproof windows. The RL Limousine would lend itself also to the Bentley State Limousine, of which 2 examples were delivered to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II during the Golden Jubilee celebrations in 2002, replacing the previous 1978 and 1987 Rolls-Royce Phantom 6 state cars. In 2002, the Arnage R and T were unveiled, the former succeeding the Red Label, while the latter was a sportier variant, being slated on its launch as the most powerful car in the Bentley portfolio, with a top speed of 170 miles an hour and a 0-60 time of 5.5 seconds, this being complemented in 2007 by a major mechanical upgrade and facelift, with the engine being married to a 6-speed automatic gearbox from the Continental, and the cubic capacity slightly increased, presenting the R an improved 460 horsepower and the T 500 horsepower. In 2003, 2 limited edition Le Mans series cars were produced to celebrate the return of Bentley to the 24-hour classic in 2003 after a 71-year absence, with 50 LM editions of the Continental R Mulliner and 150 of the Red Label, plus 5 Continental T LMs and 4 Azure LMs being produced. This was followed in 2006 by 60 Diamond Series models to mark 60 years of production at the Crewe factory. These magnificent models featuring diamond wood inlays, diamond quilted leather seats, a stainless steel bumper, 19-inch alloy wheels, and Union flag wing badges. However, by the time of the 2007 facelift, Bentley was already in the midst of creating a replacement for the Arnage in the form of the Mulsanne, with the new car being unveiled at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance in August 2009, and would give rise to a range of models that would see off the last of the Arnage-related Azure and Brooklands. In preparation for the end of Arnage production, a run of 150 final series models were built that boasted the Arnage T's powertrain, including a 6.75-litre V8 twin-turbo engine driven by a 6-speed automatic gearbox, while special features included 20-inch alloy wheels, a retractable Flying Bee mascot, dual-style filler cap, and special badging, together with a Mulliner-styled interior, including drilled alloy pedals, chrome trim, rear cocktail cabinet, and picnic tables. In the end, only 96 of the final series would be released by the time production ended in early 2009, thus heralding the end of the very last classic Rolls-Royce era Bentley car and the last link to the union of the two firms with regards to models, the Arnage assembly run eventually seeing 7,304 examples of all variants delivered during its 11-year production life. However, one last lingering strand of the Bentley Rolls-Royce combine would remain in the form of the 6.75-litre Bentley V8 engine that soldiered on in use with the Rolls-On until June 2020, when that model was discontinued and replaced by the Bentley Continental Flying Spur, rounding out a production run of 61 years that saw this power unit fitted to 22 Bentley models and 12 Rolls-Royces. Today, while the Arnage continues to be revered as a classic that delivered the perfect blend of exclusive luxury with BMW-style performance, the Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph and the Corniche 5 are often forgotten and seldom viewed in a positive light, the main criticisms being due to their inclusion of so many BMW parts and their release during the messy divorce of Bentley and Rolls-Royce in 1998. Nevertheless, the Silver Seraph proved to be the very last of the classic Rolls-Royce lineup that dated back for nearly a century to the infancy of motoring, and for what it was able to deliver in terms of reliability, style, performance, and outright luxury, the Seraph truly maintained the mantra of this most bespoke and respected of car marques, a fitting final send-off to a fading era of yesteryear.